Good afternoon, everyone.
Hello, everyone. We are just waiting for a few seconds just to have as many persons as possible, and then we will start in a few minutes.
Hello.
All right. Shall we start, Rafael? Yes. Okay, so hello, everyone. Thanks for joining the webinar. Welcome to this international webinar regarding COVID-19 impact for consumer and brands in Europe. We are very glad to host that today. My name is Delphine Benedict. I'm working for Territory Influence for international marketing. And before I hand over to Rafael, I just wanted to share with you a couple of guidelines. So first, if you have any questions during the webinar, please use the Q&A feature, which is available at the bottom of your Zoom page. You can submit whatever questions you want. We will be happy to answer all of them at the end of the session. If you want to exchange, discuss anything else, so no questions, but anything else, please use the chat feature. We will also monitor and answer you on that channel. And finally, last tip, we will share at the end of the webinar a replay video. So for your colleagues, guys who could not participate, you will be able to share that with the link. In the upcoming days, you will also receive the full report with the survey results and the local insights, local learnings with country comparisons. So you will get everything after the webinar. So Rafael is going to be our speaker today. Rafael is our Executive Director of Business Development. He's also a Forbes Council Advisor and consultant. You may have read some of his articles online on Forbes.com. He's also, like you guys, working from home in Vienna. I'm personally sitting in Paris. So we are both working at Territory Influence, which is the leading influencer marketing agency offering a full range of services and types of influencer from nano to micro to macro and star influencer. So our solutions cover all kinds of channels, offline and online. We also have brand influence products. So what is that? It's actually market research, co-creation campaigns, stuff that enables consumer to give direct feedbacks to you, marketers, brands. And this is this last expertise that we are going to activate for this webinar and survey. So why we actually launched that survey first was to provide you with valuable insights to help you understand the shifts in terms of behavior, in terms of lifestyle, in terms of your new relationships between brands and consumers. Also to confirm the importance of having a human-based communication approach in such health crises. And finally, to help you adjust marketing strategy, marketing actions during, but also after the confinement, because this is going to be important to start preparing the new normal phase happening after the COVID-19. So out of curiosity, we wanted to see with a quick poll if you already adjusted your marketing plan, if you already changed your budget, launched special campaigns, have adapted some ongoing communications. So you shall see now a quick poll appearing on your screen. So please just check quickly some boxes so we can have a feeling of what is going on your side at the moment.
There's still answers coming in, so let's give 20 more seconds.
So budget freeze, shifts, special products, adjusted campaign content, dedicated campaign or other kinds. Few seconds left. Cool, so we have 50% guys who adjusted their campaign content and copy already, 40% that launched some special dedicated campaign, 42 that have some, unfortunately, budget freeze, a quarter of budget shifts. So, okay, pretty interesting feedback. I hope that with this webinar and this survey results and learnings, we'll be able to help you further in making new decisions, new adaptations, new adjustments. Quick information regarding the scope of the survey. So this survey happened online early April on our trnd.com communities. So over 27K consumer participated. In those communities, we have nano and micro influencer types. So guys from 0 to 15K subscribers on social media. So it's important to notice that they are not professional. They weren't paid to do this survey. It's all based on super engaged profiles with no BAs in terms of results. Their feedback were pretty sincere and no incentive were given to participate in that survey. They come from 8 different countries in Europe: UK, Germany, France, Spain, Italy, Poland, Hungary, and Czech Republic. Most of them were female, aged 38 years old in average. So those statistics are pretty representative of our community. So we have over 80% female in our nano and micro influencer databases in Europe. And finally, a majority also are currently sharing their daily life either with a human being or a pet. So you also have some more insights regarding their current perception of COVID-19 and their daily life. So now that you have the scope of this quantitative survey, this online survey, I will let Raphael give you some more details regarding the learnings.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Delphine, and very happy to jump into the study details of our research and the advice we can give to brands these days. So what we're going to cover is essentially 4 parts. We will start with looking at the impact that COVID-19 has on consumers and shoppers. We will then look at how COVID-19 affects customer perceptions about brands and attitudes and relationships that consumers have with brands. We will then look at the role of influencers and creators in engaging with consumers and supporting brands during the coronavirus crisis. And then sum it up with some best practice cases, some recommendations for brand and marketing teams and businesses in Europe. So let's start with consumers and shoppers. Credit Suisse has predicted last week that the US food companies will sell between 15 and 13% more in April and May. And we are seeing similar results in our survey. So 31% of our participants already did more grocery shopping in the last couple of weeks. Food and beverage categories obviously benefiting the most, which is also due to the fact that all the restaurants and cafes are closed. So consumers locked into their homes, they are also forced to cook for themselves. But they're also shopping more laundry and cleaning products. They are also looking for more beauty and cosmetic products. Interesting, the countries that in Europe that are so far hit the hardest, so Italy and Spain, have also seen the largest increase in grocery shopping. So there's a very clear correlation to the COVID-19 impact. And maybe a little bit of fun fact, among all the countries, Italy has the highest increase in alcohol shopping, while Poland has the highest in beauty and Spain in food. Germany, in fact, has the lowest increase in laundry and cleaning. Not sure what that means, but maybe an opportunity for some of the laundry and cleaning brands to engage with German shoppers and consumers a little bit more. So while the consumers are shopping actually more during the crisis, they have significantly shifted their shopping channel and their shopping behavior. So 80% of our survey participants are nowadays shopping online, which is really striking, particularly if you consider that 42% of non-users have since the corona crisis shifted to e-commerce. So this corresponds very nicely also with an Ipsos study that has seen a 31% increase in e-commerce shopping in Italy since the coronavirus breakout. So consumers are definitely moving from traditional brick and mortar stores to e-commerce and online shops. And even more so we would do if the e-commerce delivery would be free of charge. While the online channels have changed significantly, we do still see that consumers are looking for advice from their friends and family members about which products and which brands they should buy. So we don't have the data actually prior to the COVID-19 outbreak, but I would even imagine that in this crisis, the trust among friends and family have even grown, and that they play an even more and even bigger role for consumers and shoppers to make up decisions about brands and products. Consumers also trust online reviews, which is kind of becoming the online equivalent of the offline word of mouth. So very important for boosting e-commerce sales to have sufficient number of online reviews and also obviously positive reviews for brands active on e-commerce. Trust in brands itself is not that high. So again, that could be a great opportunity for brands to reach out and engage with their communities during the crisis to make sure that that level of trust is improving and that will for sure have a long-term effect for the brand and consumer interaction. We also ask consumers, what are they doing now that they're locked in their homes? And more specifically, what are they doing actually in their leisure and spare time if they're not working from home? And across all countries, people are really streaming a lot more content, especially video content. And there's also a study out there by Nielsen that predicts the video content to be streamed 60% more than prior to COVID-19. A lot of people also use this time at home to clean up or to reorganize their house. Especially actually in Spain and Portugal, we've seen a lot of consumers being active in their homes with cleaning or tidying tasks. Spanish also do a lot of workout at home, which I guess is due to the fact that Spain is one of the countries with the most strict regulations in terms of quarantine. People are not allowed to go outside home to do sports outside at all. So they have to find some indoor and in-home routines for workouts and sports. While Germans are particularly keen on DIY projects. I guess that's not particularly impacted by COVID, but it's more like a cultural habit. Consumers also spend a lot of time online, and particularly on social media. So we've seen a significant increase in time spent on social media apps, particularly on Facebook and Instagram. UK consumers actually spend most time on social media among all the countries, while really all the countries' favorite platforms, social media platforms, are Facebook and Instagram. COVID-19 is also a huge boost for novel social media apps such as TikTok, which has seen a huge increase in number of downloads recently. And that's also reflected in our numbers. We've seen that 12% of our survey respondents are already using TikTok. And again, particularly popular in Italy and Spain, so countries which have been struck the hardest. There's a clear desire of consumers to try out new social media platforms to stay connected, but also to distract themselves, to have a little bit of fun, have a little bit of normality in all the chaos going on. So moving from consumers and how they are shifting their media behavior and their shopping behavior to how the current crisis affects the relationship that they have with brands, the interactions they have, and the attitudes that consumers have with brands. So good news for brands and marketing teams, 76% of consumers still pay attention to brands when they shop, and that doesn't change whether they shop online or they shop offline. So despite the crisis and despite the confinement, consumers still pay attention to brand and still pay attention to marketing and brand communications. Loyalty to brands is highest in CE, in Central Eastern Europe, while we've seen that in Spain and in Britain, more consumers are trying out new brands and pay more attention to different brands than before the crisis. We've also seen that consumers are still following brands on social media. They pay attention to branded content. And again, especially in Spain and CE, consumers are really willing to engage with brands on social media. They are particularly interested in brands that support them during this lockdown period. And you can see that with a lot of links between hashtags which are related to stay home or working from home and brands that are helping them in this period of confinement. We're also seeing consumers really post a lot online these days, and particularly on social media. So there's a really an explosion in content related to stay home. I think 3 days ago we had around 20 million posts with stay home hashtag. Today it's 23 million posts, and most of those posts are centering around what consumers are looking to do these days. So they are either centered around practical support with online shopping, with home delivery, or they are centered around distraction and entertainment. Now that consumers have so much time at home at their disposal, it's obviously also one of the things that they need to find some help and support in keeping themselves busy. So that's another great opportunity for brands to leverage those trends and engage with consumers around these topics. We have also seen that the majority of consumers still enjoy receiving branded communication and newsletters and other brand communication. In fact, the approval rating for advertising, again, is highest in Italy and Spain, the two countries which have been hit in Europe the hardest with the coronavirus outbreak. So it again shows the desire of consumers to get a little bit of distraction, get a little bit of normality back into their life, and hear about other subjects than just COVID-19. In fact, only 14% of consumers expect brands to send them COVID-19 information or education. Consumers want to hear from brands about other subjects to take their mind off COVID-19. They are looking for practical support, but related to the brand and the brand values and what the brand stands for, and not brands to actually step into the place of governments or health organizations. That's certainly not what consumers are looking for these days. It also corresponds very nicely with the recent Kantar study that shows that only 8% of consumers don't want to see brand advertising these days. So again, the majority of consumers are really open for brand communication, are open for marketing activities, and are looking forward to engage with brands, particularly on social media. If you look at the type of content that consumers are expecting from brands, what kind of content they would actually expect brands to provide them with. So mostly it's content that has practical values. So consumers are looking for, well, now that they are forced to cook for themselves and they cannot go out anymore, they're obviously looking for advice how to cook. They're looking for tutorials, they're looking for recipes. So a great way for brands to engage with consumers in the food and beverage industry. Consumers would also love brands to help them with, meaningfully spending their time in terms of, providing tutorials for DIY crafts or particular support with kids, with young kids, helping, moms and parents to keep their kids busy and keep them, entertained and help them with, the learning and schooling program at home. Particularly in Spain and Hungary, we've seen that a lot of consumers are also looking for brands to help them with workout tips, with yoga sessions, with sports, with doing sports from home. While maybe again a little bit of a fun fact, in France, 14% of French consumers would like to receive advice regarding their relationships, which the other countries are not that keen on. So these are all really great areas for brands to engage with consumers and really provide them with some practical support. So again, we would like to ask our audience, what kind of content are you already or are you planning to create and sponsor in relation to these demands from consumers? And let me just open up our second survey. So you should see it right now and give you a couple of seconds to tell us what kind of brand content you are either already creating and sponsoring, or what kind of special content you plan to create or sponsor now that your consumers are all locked at home. So I'm seeing a lot of special content coming in regarding cooking advice and recipes. So similar to the demand of the consumers we've seen in our surveys. Also, some brands are doing some live concerts or sponsoring music events and live events online. That's great. Also seeing some brands sponsoring DIY or creative workshops. Some brands sponsoring workout, yoga, or fitness, and also social coffee, cocktails, cooking. That's another thing we've seen also with us, with our agency, that's really important to keep in touch with your colleagues, but also to actually engage in it with a wider audience. And consumers are certainly open for having a sip of coffee online on platforms, on communication platforms like Zoom, or enjoying a cocktail together or some cooking events together. So great. Thanks a lot for participating to this survey. So we are really seeing also a big role that influencers can play during these days with supporting brands, but also supporting consumers and supporting their audiences. So let's move to the third section, where we look at the impact of the coronavirus crisis on influencers and creators. And let's actually start by looking at an interview we did with a German fashion and travel influencer, with Dani Herold, some days ago. And I do hope that I will be able to play the video. So Dani lives with a family in Hamburg. She has around 150,000 followers on Instagram, and she's a German fashion and travel influencer. All right. So we are seeing that a lot of influencers have kind of a similar history that Daniel shared. So many have really paused to publish any content on social media in shock of the coronavirus crisis. A lot of them have actually proactively reached out to their audiences and asked them what kind of content do they want to see these days, and what do they expect these creators to post about. So we did exactly the same. So we asked consumers, what kind of content do you expect influencers to post? What is the role that you see influencers having these days in the middle of the corona crisis? And mostly we really expect influencers to basically continue to distract and entertain them, to brighten up their life, to bring a little bit of normality back to them amid this crisis. They also see influencers having a role in terms of education and in terms of helping out and supporting the educational efforts by government. As I'm sure all of you have seen in the example of the Vietnamese TikTok video that really became viral, where the Vietnamese government and health officials actually enlisted the help of two TikToker to create a little music video about the importance of washing your hands and wearing masks, and that video is hugely popular these days online. Or even the WHO, the World Health Organization, has enlisted the support of some influencers to create awareness for the health precautions that are necessary these days. But most of the consumers just expect influencers to continue posting regular content, and also very, very happy to post brand corporations. In fact, I've seen a couple of influencers reaching out to the audiences and asking them specifically, and the vast majority of those replies were positive. Consumers are looking for a little bit of normality, very happy for influencers to continue collaborating with brands. And the influencers themselves are obviously also very, very happy to continue partnering with brands. You also heard that, or you read it in the interview with Dani Harold, that she's really glad and appreciates the collaborations that she has with brands that support her living and her family during these difficult times. So we've seen the same thing when we ask our influencers. 99% are willing to continue the collaboration with brands while adjusting a little bit the content or adjusting the creative to reflect the current situation. On the other hand, 79% of influencers are also using this lockdown while they are also shut down at home, discover new brands and discover new products for themselves, but also potentially for future collaborations. So essentially, it's really a great period for brands to reach out and engage with the influencers and partner with them, maybe more now so than ever before. So why is that the case? We really see consumers spending a lot more time on social media, and influencers really being able to engage with them in a very credible and authentic way. And don't forget, with so many other media channels being closed these days, there are no more events, there are no more sports, cinemas are closed, out-of-home advertising is becoming pretty much useless these days. So social media and influencer content are a great way for brands to engage and reach out to significant audiences these days. Also keep in mind that creators are pretty much the only one these days to produce high-quality content autonomously, with all the production studios being also shut down. Influencers are the only one who know how to actually create great content on their own, and brands can leverage that know-how to really create novel content that they are able to broadcast to their audiences and target groups. And influencer content does really create brand preference. Remember that consumers do trust other people, they not necessarily trust brands. So by partnering up with an influencer or with many influencers, small or big, that's a great opportunity for brands to increase their trust and convince consumers to try out their products. And the other thing is that obviously creators also get immediate feedback on social media, so that can also help brands to adjust their messaging, to collect honest feedback and insights, and really adjust the content that they put out these days. And that's an extremely important task, to stay agile and flexible and adjust your branded messages according to the situation. So speaking about adjustments, there are obviously some things to consider for brands in working with influencers these days. So first and foremost, I would really encourage brands to reach out and engage with talents, with creative talents, maybe with talents that they thought were unavailable or unaffordable in the past. A lot of creative talent are now out there and are available. If you think about famous chefs, they don't have a job right now. If you think about actors, theaters are closed, production studios are closed, there's no movie production going on. So you could really leverage that opportunity to reach out to much bigger influencers, star influencers, and engage with them that you might not have considered possible only a couple of weeks back. The other one obviously is to focus on online influence and in-home events. There are no events in real life. There are no offline activities where influencers can engage with the audiences or can create content from there. So obviously the production of content has to be adjusted and the type of content has to be adjusted. Brands should also be really more open in their briefings to allow influencers to adjust the content pieces to their audiences, whether it's to reflect the situation, whether it's to relate to the fact that they are also locked into their own homes or working from home, or whether they actually have the confirmation from the audience that it's perfectly okay to talk about brands in a normal way and bring therefore a little bit of normality into consumers' lives. I would also advise brands to watch out for too much coronavirus references, also for too much patronizing advice or too many hashtag stay home messages, and really be choiceful also in their communication and stick to your brand values, to your own brand messages. And last but not least, really the time now for brands to commit to your creative partners. They will not forget, if brands stay true to their words, if they continue supporting them as well, or if basically they abandon ship and canceled everything, or abandon even confirmed projects. That's really a consideration for brands to do now, to be able to reach out and engage with influencers long term. They will not forget whether the brands have stayed to them and have continued supporting them, or whether they abandoned them in these crisis times. So also want to share a couple of case studies that we have seen across Europe, which really nicely reflect the role of influencers, the growing importance of influencers, but also the advice we just talked about in terms of adjusting campaign content. So one example is in France, we had actually scheduled an influencer campaign for a new launch for the Bell Group, a big food brand, and they're particularly for Boursin. And we had to adjust the plans because the whole launch of the new product was getting postponed. So we, together with the brand, really decided to reach out to existing buyers of the Boursin brand and engage with them and challenge them to create 5 novel recipes with 5 ingredients, one of them being obviously the Boursin cheese, and sharing that on their social media channel. And that's a great example for a brand reaching out and engaging with influencers and their audiences, supporting them with one of the struggles they have, namely, cooking at home for the family, and not always just, using some frozen pizzas, but really some, fresh fruits, and a great way for the brand to really both portray their own brand values and brand benefits while adapting the communication to the current situation. Another example I'm incredibly proud of is we are running a range of micro-influencer communities on behalf of Pampers across Europe, and starting with the UK, we've really focused and shifted the focus from a very much product-focused message to a support message, serving consumers, serving parents who are stuck at home, who don't know what to do with their kids anymore, and really give them some advice, provide them with tips, provide them with practical support, and also leverage the knowledge of some experts we bring in online to provide parents with activities for babies or activities for the whole family, with some creative inspiration, or also with some help in terms of sleep and sleeping habits or bedtime habits. And we've seen both influencers, our micro-influencer communities, but also parents really engaging with those type of contents and really being glad and showing gratitude to the brand for supporting them in these difficult periods of time. So another way of really leveraging the power of the influencer community in reaching out effectively to your audiences in these times and supporting them with very practical support. And third case we want to share is with consumers really shifting their shopping behavior to online channels. I mentioned that ratings and reviews become so much more important for brands to be visible, to show up online, and to be bought in e-commerce. And here also we are supporting one of our clients across Europe with a dedicated campaign that activates the power of nano-influencers in not only publishing content on social media, but also writing very credible and authentic reviews on e-commerce platforms, so that they, not only their audiences, but also anyone who is basically visiting these e-commerce shops can see the positive reviews and can really gain some first-hand experience and advice from our influencers. So these were just a couple of cases that we have seen recently, where brands really leverage the power of influencers and reach out to their audiences in a novel way, supporting them in a very good way. So just want to move to the conclusions and recommendations that we see for both brands and businesses. I think I don't need to speak to you about first and foremost. Obviously, if you and your teams and your businesses and your brand can help the frontline, health workers, the World Health Organization in the production of masks or sanitizers. I mean, that's amazing, and that's great. And we've seen many businesses switching production lines to produce masks or produce sanitizers, hand sanitizers, which is amazing. And I have the utmost respect for those brands and those manufacturing workers, and the dedication that they show. Obviously, another area is for any business to focus on the health and safety of your own teams, of your marketing teams, of your wider employees, of your suppliers and partners. But apart from those things, we really believe that, and we've seen in a lot of research, that investing in your brand now, despite the crisis, and building the recommendation and the relationship with your consumers can be really, really powerful. And in terms of really learnings and focusing on the learnings for marketing, it's really all about meeting your consumers where they are right now, at home, on social media, in front of their TVs, and really focusing on the care and the support that you can give them as a brand. So really, I would really encourage all the marketeers in the call to really think about what you can do, what your brand can do to help your consumers in the lockdown, to support your consumers in a very, very practical way. And you've seen there's a strong demand from consumers for entertainment as well, for distraction, for inspiration. So that means that also traditional advertising has a big role to play and continues to be important. Consumers do not reject advertising, and there's a lot of studies out there that show that the brands that will continue advertising during the crisis are the ones that are going to be successful, not only during, but particularly after the crisis. And brands and marketing teams who are shutting down the advertising now will be the ones that are suffering most after the coronavirus. So we've also seen that the humanized approach continues to be really important, that it is important for brands to show compassion, to show care, to show support for your consumers, but also for your creative partners, for your agency partners. And again, these partners will not forget the brands that have stuck to them through the crisis. We've also seen that really consumers are open for brand communication. They are open for brand advertising. There's a new research by the Oxford University from yesterday or 2 days ago that brands really should continue advertising, and that those brands who stop all the advertising are going to be suffering most. And also counter research we're showing here is confirming that consumers do expect advertising. They do actually look forward to brand communication, but they do expect companies or brand teams to adjust the tone and the messaging to make sure that they are adequate to the situation. We're also discussing the opportunities for brands to really support their consumers, to engage with them, and continue to do so. Really think about the ways you can support your consumers, be it with tips, with advice, with sponsoring some of these content that consumers are searching for these days online. You really use digital marketing to create that direct engagement, the dialogue, show some compassion by putting yourself into your consumers' shoes and supporting them in the confinement period. We've also adjusted our own formats accordingly. So we have put up the last couple of weeks some specials to allow brands to very practically provide inspiration, tips, and advice to our group of and communities of nano and micro influencers. We have more than 4 million nano and micro influencers registered with our communities. So we do provide brands access to those communities in a very simple and efficient way, and leverage the power and the enthusiasm of those influencers in spreading messages on social media, spreading messages to their fans and followers. We've also created a special live event where particularly macro influencers can engage together with micro and nano influencers in a live event, be it on Zoom or be it on other platforms, where we basically offer brands the chance to really provide some support or provide some practical tips. Use a famous chef to instruct your audiences on how to prepare meals with your products, with your brand. Use a sports athlete that brands are partnering with anyway to do some practical, sporting sessions and workout sessions at home that we can showcase and we can distribute to our groups of influencers, to your target groups. And last but not least, we also will contribute with our agency profits to the WHO Solidarity Response Fund. We also want to make sure that we can pay a little bit and contribute a little bit to the fight against the virus and to find a vaccine or a cure for the virus. So I am a little bit stuck with my mouse. I hope that you guys can still hear me and see my screen, because it doesn't move on. But the last message we want to leave you guys with is that despite all the chaos, despite all the shock and awe that obviously the first couple of days or weeks of the Corona crisis has created with all of us, be it with marketeers, with agencies, with influencers, with consumers, don't forget to get ready when things go back to normal, whenever that may be. Because consumers certainly want to get back to the normal life. They want to go out again. They want to shop. They want to spend time with their friends outside. And they will make most of it being outside, with shopping, with restaurants. So it's really mandatory for brands to also think how they can actually leverage that surge, that expected surge from consumer demand once the coronavirus measures are being lifted. And we, in fact, going to host another webinar dedicated to how brands can get ready for the area post-COVID-19 in May. And we'll be happy to provide more details when we get nearer to the date. So I think we do have a little bit of time for your questions. So very, very happy to hand back to Delphine, who will lead the Q&A section. And again, do not hesitate to use the Q&A button if any question has popped up, or if any other question remained that we didn't cover. Feel free to use the Q&A, ask your questions, and we'll be very happy to answer those.
Yeah, thank you, Rafael. So we got one first question about influencer selection. So how do you ensure influencer relevancy? How can you ensure the right selection, like the type of influencer, the different criteria? How do you make that selection?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and I did forget to mention that. Obviously, in terms of the adjustments that brands need right now in terms of collaborating with influencers, you obviously have to check whether the influencers are still available these days, and also check whether the content they produce is adequate to the situation, and is relevant, and whether the audiences are engaging with the content that these influencers do produce. So that's part of our work as an influencer marketing agency, is really finding the type of influencer and the particular influencers, each one literally, that is mostly relevant, that has a passion for the brand, that has a credible story to tell, that can relate to the brand and the brand benefits, and also has an engaged audience that is open for a collaboration in these days.
All right, we have another questions. How GDO and DIY chains will change their space due to COVID crisis?
How sorry, I didn't fully get it. How DIY?
DIY chains, retails. retailers
Right.
will change their space due to the COVID crisis?
Well, I think, there's a lot of evidence out there that, traditional retail is going to be disrupted dramatically through the virus. The coronavirus crisis, if anything, serves as a huge disruptor and accelerator of digital transformation. So I do expect, retailers, but also brands to not fully go back to the old, normal, that consumers will stuck to e-commerce channels that they have now experienced and got used to the last couple of weeks. So I do believe that the retail landscape particularly will see a permanent shift, that e-commerce is definitely going to stay, that coronavirus is a huge accelerator for this digital transformation, particularly in regards to retail and e-commerce. Potentially also to media channels. Again, I'm personally not sure that consumers will immediately flock back to cinemas, movie theaters, big sports events, given the risk associated to those mass congregations of people, and hence I also don't think that brands will continue to spend as much on these properties. And there's a lot of research out there that expects a significant shift, particularly in terms of sports event and the money that is available to sports clubs, due to the fact that advertisers are not willing to pay premium anymore for these events, because consumers basically are not going to be there anymore.
All right, Giuseppe, if you have any other questions, do not hesitate. Another one, how would you identify those topics that needs to be postponed and the ones that need to be just adapted during the COVID-19?
Well, I think essentially, it's pretty much kitchen logic. The type of content that is contradictory to governmental advice and health precautions, that has to be postponed. I pick one example, which is pretty famous. The KFC finger licking good campaign was one of the first ones obviously put off air because it contradicts the health advice in terms of washing your hands. Don't put your hand in your face, and then obviously not in your mouth these days. But for those type of content, that is not adequate to the current situation. Otherwise, I would always recommend brands to also reach out and engage openly with their influencers and creators and define together what is relevant for the audiences, because the influencers know best what is adequate to their audience, and they get immediate feedback from the audience, so they can adjust very, very fast, and they are seeing immediate feedback and are able to learn from that very fast. So I would always recommend brands and marketing teams to be open, discuss that with your agency partners and with the influencers themselves, and really agree on a solution together.
Okay, questions regarding...
Delphine, the other thing I just realized, I also seen a study recently that a lot of normal advertising is really considered to be adequate by consumers these days. So brands who maybe a little bit prematurely put all the advertising off air because they were concerned about the content, I would not be that much concerned. Consumers are looking for normality. They are looking for distraction. They want to see what they are used to seeing and what they have been used to see pre-COVID-19. So I would focus mostly on those areas that I just mentioned, which are contradictory to current governmental guidelines or health guidelines. But regular advertising should be in 80% of the cases pretty good to put forward, and the same goes for influencer content. Most of them should be good to publish.
Perfect. Thanks for the precision. We have a question regarding mobility solutions. How do you think brands that offer mobility solutions should adapt during and after the crisis?
I have to admit, I'm not an expert for mobility. So, I do expect basically consumers to be more choiceful. So I think, if I would not expect, anytime soon, the same amount of people flying, the same amount of people, in a train, in public transport, on a cruise ship. I have a hard time imagining that. So I think if you are in the transportation sector, in the public transportation sector or mobility sector, I think those will suffer for quite a long time. And I've seen estimates, particularly in regards to airline transportation, that they don't expect passenger numbers to be back to normal until 2022. So 2 years time.
All right, let's keep positive. Questions regarding the length. How long is an influencer marketing campaign? So would that actually fit with the confinement period? Is that still relevant?
Yeah, very, very good question. I mean, influencer campaigns can be, anything from, a couple of posts that can be happening or can be produced in a couple of days to, a big, annual plan with regular content being published by the influencers. So it really depends on the brand objective and the campaign strategy and the creative, whether that's a short-term focused campaign or there's going to be a long-term campaign. So that can be really adjusted to the type of content and type of campaign. So if you want to support consumers during the confinement and you're worried that maybe it takes 2 months until it's set up, here I can really guarantee that that's not the case. So if you do want to reach out to your consumers while they're still stuck at home, this can be done through influencers within a couple of days. So that can be set up very quickly. And in fact, I mean, the example I showed you, we have basically adjusted within a couple of days, and we were able to put out content and find influencers, engage with them, agree on the campaign with literally couple of hours, couple of days the most, and we are out there with content adequate to the situation that helps brands and helps the consumers at the same time.
Perfect. Another questions regarding the food industry, like restaurants, food corners. Should them reinvent their business model, for instance, pushing on delivery services?
It's a very good question. Again, I mean, obviously, the restaurants and hospitality sector in general is among the industries which have been hit the hardest by the coronavirus crisis. I think nobody can tell for sure what's going to happen with laws and regulations being lifted, whether consumers will flock back because they are so desperate to go out and be in a restaurant and get some proper food and not do your own home cooked meal anymore, or whether they are more concerned and more cautious and whether they're rather continue being more in a self-quarantine mode rather than going out and being among people. So I think that's really something we have to all see and maybe look east, particularly into China, which was the country the first impacted, to see how consumers are responding there and whether they go back, whether they go out to restaurants again, or whether restaurants will have to reinvent their business model, focus more on home delivery to be able to very quickly regain business.
All right. Another one regarding KPI. According to you, do you think we should adjust KPI measurement for communications and for influencer marketing specifically? What indicators do you use?
So so I think two ways to answer that question. So one is there's a vast amount of different KPIs out there in general in terms of digital marketing, in terms of social media. We are strongly advocating our clients to, in general, look at not only the number of fans and followers that influencers have, but particularly pay attention to the engagement, because that's the clearest way to assess whether the messages has resonated, whether there is potential for action in consumers' behavior, and ultimately measure the real change in consumer attitude through research or the actual consumer consumption behavior and shopping behavior in terms of either online shopping or even offline shopping. In fact, we have another webinar only, I think, 2 months back, where we talked about how brands can measure the sales impact of nano and micro-influencer campaigns. And I don't know who asked the question, but we are very happy to provide you the recording of that webinar and share more details in terms of what kind of KPIs we recommend to look at, but also how to measure the actual real sales impact of any influencer campaign.
Cool. And let's take one last question before the end. Media synergy. So traditional media really changed, were impacted by COVID-19. So how would you see synergies between the traditional media left and influencer marketing?
Well, there are huge synergies, obviously, on social media, and huge opportunities for brands to amplify influencer content on social media. Also pick up, the best pieces of influencer content, use it on their own, paid media or owned media channels. So that's an area where most marketing teams and media agencies are slow to pick up the benefits and pick up the opportunities. So that's definitely an area I would always recommend brands to look at, not only focusing on the organic reach of the influencers, but really picking the best types of content, the best content pieces, and sponsoring those with paid media. There's a very cost-efficient method to and great synergies to leverage. Otherwise, it depends on the media channel, and obviously it can range from influencer testimonials that you could use also for traditional media, be it TV or radio or print. You can use claims and quotes from influencers in any advertising, very, very nicely also integrated again into print or digital advertising. We've seen a couple of our brand partners and clients using influencers and inviting influencers to join traditional advertising production and really act as a very authentic spokesperson for the brand. We've seen great results there as well. So there's really a multitude of ways on how influencer marketing and the content that influencers create or the influencer themselves can be leveraged, and we can create synergies with traditional media, with offline events once that is feasible again, but particularly in digital marketing and social media.
Perfect. So our very last question was from Janast regarding where we could find the survey and the presentation. So as we've explained earlier, we will share everything right after the webinar. So the replay video will be shared per email, so you can share that to your colleagues. And the upcoming days, we will share the full copy of this survey results with all local insight, all local learnings, so you can also compare between countries the different results. So you will get everything per email. In case you don't receive it or it's going to your spam, don't hesitate to write directly to us on helloinfluence@territory.group. You can also reach directly Rafael Schwartz if you have any specific questions regarding his today's feedbacks, learnings, and recommendations. We are here to help you and support you guys. Don't hesitate to contact us if you need extra materials, extra precisions, extra information regarding this survey and the post-COVID-19 recommendations, basically. So thanks everyone for staying with us until the end. We will let you know when the next webinar will take place. And in the meantime, we wish you a very nice afternoon, end of the day, and we'll keep in touch regarding the next steps.
Thank you so much. Stay safe and hopefully see you soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.